quick recap. A month and a half ago, Pirate Software had some allegations against him from this Lyric Wolf person who, in my opinion, just had like a bad interaction with Pirate Software. What it really boiled down to was that Pirate Software is just a furry gooner. They met up, they both hooked up as legal adults, and they were just, that was pretty much it. Pirate Software was definitely a bit aggressive at times in text messages. He was definitely not a good person, but in a vacuum, I wouldn't really say what he did in those allegations was cancel-worthy. Somebody sent this to me, and this is a massive follow-up to the Pirate Software situation. And based on like the first two things I saw, it definitely looked a lot more serious based on what was being described. So we'll just get this going. I'm also not gonna fucking view this Pirate Software Sucks website because it's such a weird website to navigate. There's so much going on that website, and it's meant to be like simple to navigate. So I'm just gonna go off what this Twitter thread says by Lyric Wolf, and we'll just go from there. Pirate Software's past sexual violations. On June 24th, 25, an anonymous user I'll call X reached out to me about their experience with Pirate Software and gave me permission to share. Okay, so about a month after, basically. So a month ago they told you their story, and then a month after they shared it. Trigger warning: contains non-consensual sexual violation. Read at your discretion. That is a very serious allegation. I hope it doesn't boil down to Pirate Software just being like a fucking horny gooner. So I guess it definitely seems a lot more serious based on that alone. Let's see what we got. Content warning: graphic content. Pirate Software insisted on penetrative sex with X, who clearly communicated their refusal. He would force himself onto X and dry hump them. Oh, Jesus. Yeah, oh my god. When X tried to push him away, he would forcefully push himself onto him. This would continue until Thor ejaculated. Jesus Christ. So if what's being insinuated here is true, that could be a form of sexual assault at the very least. I mean, we'd have to know the extent of it. I guess there are some screenshots attached. We'll look at it. This was during the COVID... Okay, so... Listen, I'm not trying to be that guy, but it's like, who said this screenshot? Where's this screenshot from? Are you not going to, like, show, like, it being by someone, but then blurring it out at least? Like, it's one thing if they want to be anonymous, so they don't get harassment, but, like, I don't know. I just feel like that would be important to know. I assume this is from X. I guess, allegedly. This was during the COVID or just post-COVID era. We had met on a furry dating app called Howler. That a thing? Yeah, I mean, researching Howler, I've never heard of this app called Howler, but it's a real thing. Yeah, it's a furry dating app similar to the mainstream app Grindr. Yeah, okay. I mean, yeah. Cool stuff. I had no idea who he was or the game he made or how big he was on the internet. I do not follow streamers or content creators. When we started hanging out in my room is where things got weird. Despite me explicitly telling him I did not want penetrative sex or any bodily fluids on my bed, he kept insisting on doing sexual things. Eventually, it got to the point where I was pushing him away or telling him to stop, but he seemed to pretend not to hear. And him being larger than it wasn't exactly easy to push him off, so he continued to dry hump me until he ejaculated. So, okay, there's one of two things that could have happened here. This person is alleging that Pirate Software pretended not to hear when they told them to stop or push them away. Pushing them away is definitely a very clear sign of, hey, I don't want this, please stop. That's definitely a very clear sign. What also possibly could have happened, and this is like the most charitable way of viewing it, is that like Pirate Software genuinely didn't hear and then they like accidentally committed like a form of sexual assault. That can happen. But no, once you hear no, once you very clearly see signs or hear no, then that's it. And pushing them away definitely is like a sign of very little ambiguity. So, yeah, okay. I mean, that's definitely not good if that's true. There's very little ambiguity there, I would say. Like, he came into my house, no shoes, ignored the things I said to talk about himself, immediately wanted to come inside of me, despite him telling me no, me telling him no multiple times during the time I was having terrible nerve pain. Kept pushing himself onto me as I was pushing him off, and when I told him that he shouldn't have done that, he said, "You know you liked it." Yeah, okay, this is definitely not good if this is true, by the way. Like, this is definitely very, very bad. Already just reading this doesn't scream to me as a normal, typical internet allegation, like Ticklegate, like Katie Bugs. Usually when you read stuff, you can tell when things are very sensationalized. You can tell when things are a little bit, like, stupid. This definitely is a very serious allegation. Like, just, like, reading all of this in general. If this wound up being true, hopefully this person filed a police report, because this would be unacceptable if it is true. I pretty much blocked all of it out of my mind. I wasn't particularly hurt. I just thought, wow, that was surreal. I can't believe someone like that exists. Okay, so this is, yeah, that is Pirate Software. That's definitely him, on the app. So fighting games I'm terrible at outside of old school Neo Geos. However, anime, tunes, any kind of big stuff like into that. Really love a ton of different stuff there. Furry game dev like you. Programmer and artist there. Cuddle Fiend, check. Also big one. So far, there are no discrepancies with this story that I can find. It seems like this is Thor himself. It seems like that could legitimately be... I will say the profile picture here is just T, and it's not like whatever this picture Thor used, but that could just be like a very minor thing. Everything else seems to check out fairly well. Do excuse me if I'm a little too skeptical. We do read a lot of fake shit on the internet, so do excuse me if I'm a little too skeptical. But everything here seems to check out. Also, they seem to be using the same messaging platform that Lyric Wolf. I'm confused now, actually. Hold on. This is a surviving image of Pirate Software's Telegram at the time that X sent me. As you can see, the Telegram clearly states his handle, shows his persona, and also matches up with Pirate Software's dislike of smoking seen in the chat logs and public clips. So I'm confused. Why are we seeing chat log messages between Thor and Lyric here? I thought this was about this X person in Pirate Software interacting. I'm confused. Like, why are we seeing Thor and Lyric interacting here? That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Do you smoke? No, cigarettes are nasty. How come? I was just confused why you sent that sticker. Oh, well, weed/stickers, and I have nothing against weed, honestly. Sometimes, yeah, I generally use CBDs to control my OCD. I was on SSRIs prior, and they made me a slug. CBDs are non-hallucinogenic components from weed, so no. High, but stops my OCD. And a bunch of furry stickers. I don't know why we're seeing chat log messages between Lyric and Thor. It's supposed to be about this X person and Thor. So I am a little bit confused there.
Is Thor rolling a cigarette? I don't smoke, dude. No. What? Is Thor rolling a cigarette?
Okay, he doesn't smoke. Okay, interesting, I guess. X lectured Pirate Software after he climaxed, telling him that they did not consent. After the incident, X messaged a friend about Thor's actions. They had blocked it out until they... Like I said, if this is all true, this is definitely some form of sexual assault, just to be clear. This is definitely, like, a form of it. Which is very serious, and Pirate Software would either... I don't know. At this point, I think Pirate Software... If these allegations are false, Pirate Software would probably have to sue them, if that's true. X lectured Pirate Software after he climaxed, telling him that they did not consent. After the incident, X messaged a friend about Thor's actions. They had blocked it out until they... I think I read all this. After they saw Thor win the Streamer Awards for Best Developer. After it was all done, I lectured him, saying that I had told him repeatedly not to do that. Luckily, I'm pretty thick-skinned when it comes to casual sex, but if I were anyone else, that could have been a traumatic experience. His reply was simply, "You know you liked it," which I rolled my eyes in disgust. So February 2021. Now my bed smells like a lot of cum. Jesus fucking Christ. He went a little too ham. Thor came in your bed? Yeah, ZZ. He also didn't wear shoes. So it actually makes sense if they are a bit if they are a bit thick-skinned when it comes to sex. It actually does check out as to why this didn't come out sooner, because they were unsure of whether or not it would or wouldn't be sexual assault, because they see this ex-person strikes me as someone who has a lot of casual sex. That would probably that does make a lot of sense to me, actually. Thor came in your bed? Yeah, ZZ. Also, he didn't wear shoes. Emoticon here. Like, just straight up, he came over without shoes. Very eccentric person. That's Thor's biggest crime here. Not wearing shoes on your travels over for a hookup. Okay, sorry, that was a little inappropriate. I probably shouldn't be making jokes during this time. It's a little inappropriate. For authenticity's sake, I can also tell you I confided in many other indie game devs in Seattle about this story, and they believed me, and I've always known Thor to be kind of shady. I had no intention of coming out with my story and didn't care for attention, but it did weigh on my conscience because I do believe Thor should not be allowed to abuse anyone else further. Yeah, like I said, I do think it makes sense that they're hiding their identity. This person doesn't strike me as like a clout chaser based on the way they're sharing their story. If they did, they wouldn't be hiding their identity. They also wouldn't be... It makes sense that they wouldn't want to reveal themselves, because they'd probably just get a lot of unnecessary harassment from Pirate Software's community. I had zero idea that he was a big entity on the internet until some Game Awards showed him. This is when I sort of realized maybe I should confront Thor. We're in similar game dev circles. I see his name everywhere, and beyond that, I did not want to see further harm done to someone else. This is a lot of text. Okay. I imagine that Pirate Software just doesn't read Discord DMs. This is this ex-person trying to talk to them. June 16th. We need to talk when you have the chance. Well, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but our last interactions left me really uncomfortable, to put it lightly, but I want to talk to you about it if you remember me before making any judgments. Is there a reason why we never talked after that? I guess I just want to know how much you remember. I didn't want to bring something up 2 years later just to be spiteful or anything, so I apologize if it came off that way. To be real, I kind of didn't want to think about it much, but it's become somewhat hard to not see you around in my circles nowadays. We can talk as much as you have time. There is no rush, but there is very least knowing you are sorry is a better thought than none. I was going through a lot that time. That infection I told you about when we were meeting ended up being an undiagnosed chronic condition. So in a way, I didn't really have a lot of mental energy to deal with it one way or another. I was going through a lot at the time that... Oh, yeah, I read that part. That said, as long as you kind of understand why I was upset about things, that would go a long way, and I feel closure on the subject. I really don't want to bother you beyond that, especially if things could be amicable between us. Specifically, very vividly, I remember the line, "You know you liked it," and that just felt really inappropriate. It would have been nice to hear you say something more consciousness. I don't know how to say that word. Ugh, it's weird. I've never seen someone spell it like that. Whatever. Even just something like, "But seriously, if you didn't, I'm sorry, and I want you to tell me." Boundaries like that are really important, and at the time, I was just happy to meet another game dev, and I was willing to be helpful and drive you around when you asked. That's pretty much all I'm asking. If some lines are blurred, there should be some effort to make them clear, and I felt I was trying to give verbal and physical indication of those, so you know you liked it kind of messed with me a bit. Like I said, that checks out with their story, because earlier they said they tried to like push them off as an indicator, saying they weren't comfortable, and Pirate Software allegedly pretended to not hear it and then kept going, which, again, that is a form of sexual assault, if that's true. That's definitely not good on Pirate Software's part. It seems like Pirate Software had a massive disregard for this person's boundaries entirely, which is, again, that's definitely just not good. So please, I'm not trying to vilify you or anything, just trying to genuinely give my opinion. When I say I'm genuinely trying to give you my opinion on how it should have been handled, I am being sincere. In that way, I would not be, it would not be good if you felt like that was an acceptable thing to do to someone else in the future, or at least knowing that you cared enough to think about how that would have affected me. I'm just giving you exactly how I felt about that situation, and I'm hoping you'd understand why I feel that way. I'm not sure why that would be wrong, and I'm not trying to coerce a specific statement out of you. Just give you my genuine advice for the future. That line you had said was inappropriate to me after what happened, and something you could have said instead. I get why you would delete your messages, but it still feels pretty shitty to me. If I was out to slander your reputation, I wouldn't have even tried talking to you. Yeah, so like I said, Pirate Software deleting their messages against this person. They deleted their messages against Lyric as well in their interactions, which is, again, it's a very shady thing to do in general. You should never delete your DMs with someone because it's always going to be like a form of proof that can exonerate you potentially. So you never delete your DMs with someone, generally speaking. But in the case of Lyric, it wound up just being a fucking nothing burger, so it didn't really matter in that case. This case seems to be a lot different, though. Regardless, I've said what I need to say. Whether you want to take my word to heart is up to you. I was just hoping for a more empathetical response. No one wants to be in the position I'm in. It is a lose-lose situation, and it's hard for me to talk about it, and nowhere did I request you make a specific statement. I'm not trying to make it feel that way. And again, if things aren't clear, being able to clear it up would give me personal closure. To me, I thought I was making it clear through my words and physical actions that certain things were hard limits. Cuddling was fine, and it was the fact that on our first meeting, it would just be beyond that despite me asking it not to. I'm actually purposely being vague about details because I don't want you to feel threatened by this conversation. Again, blurred lines happen, but to me, what happens after the blurred lines is important. I felt like I was being shitty too. I genuinely did not want you to feel bad after everything that happened. I felt really bad if that was a blow to you emotionally, but I had to process things too. And I was and still am going through some crazy shit in my life. When our Telegram history was gone, I had no idea what to think beyond maybe you did feel something awful about everything. But part of me in my head started thinking, okay, maybe it's just feeling great about using that twink and then getting away with it. Not like we talked about the details of what happened in that night, so it really felt shitty not to talk about. Okay, so just to be clear, everything in this person's story makes sense. Like, I am not finding any discrepancies other than the fact that Lyric included their conversation, which I'm a little bit confused about. Maybe someone can clarify that in the comments section. Yeah, I mean, everything in this person's story checks out. Like, I really am not seeing any discrepancies in this person's story. So, again, Pirate Software, if all of this is true, this is not good. This is not good at all. if this is all true. I didn't think I would either, but being a game dev in Seattle, your name pops up pretty much in all my circles, and it felt bad and weighed on my mind for different reasons. I kept going back and forth about whether to reach out or to try to resolve things for my personal peace, but also so I'd stop having that reaction, but I felt awful about it for many reasons, like the thought you might see me as someone trying to ruin you or something, so of course I struggled with it for a while doing so. I really don't want you to feel that way, and I'm sorry. I'm not sure how to ease that thought, but genuinely I'd feel terrible if I ruined anybody. Being able to talk openly about this does help ease the thought that you were just using me for sexual reasons, and at least I get clarity about what exactly went wrong for me. Thank you so much for talking to me. I'm sorry to scare you. Just know that you also feel bad that it was a situation. I also just realized that these are 2024 DMs, not 2025. So it seems like Pirate Software deleted all their responses to this person. And there's obviously some deleted messages. Yeah, there's definitely like a massive time frame between these messages. So it did, like, again, Pirate Software did delete his side of the argument, which is not good. Okay, I think we pretty much read everything here, generally speaking. It seems like they talked it out. At the time, it seemed okay towards the end. But Thor's messages were saved because they were discussing the response with friends. The parts of the messages being saved amount to Thor's excuse. Oh, wow, they fucking archived Thor's responses. Oh, that's so fucking... Oh, wow, interesting. Okay. About, this seems very... okay, so these are the... So just for context, these are the same DMs we just read, but I'm just going to read Thor's responses because those parts were deleted in the first screenshot. About, this seems very ominous. Yep, sorry if I made you uncomfortable. I cut contact once you made it clear that things were really negative between us. I think it was communicated poorly from my side at the time, but it didn't feel like I had made it any better to do so. Legitimately felt like it would have just been, it would just be a blip of something you no longer cared about. Yep, totally understand. I overstepped at the time and misunderstood the situation. Okay, so... the most charitable way to look at this, like I said earlier, is that Thor, it would still be a form of sexual assault, but it would be an unintentional form of sexual assault. Like, Thor wouldn't necessarily be like a predator out of it, essentially. Which, again, I think there does need to be a conversation about just like better education in like school about like sex ed and consent. I think teaching young men specifically consent. I know Thor would have been like, I think they hooked up, I believe it was in 2021 this happened. So Thor would have been like in his late 20s at the very least when this happened. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think we do need like better education on like consent and stuff. So like Thor is alleging that he misunderstood the situation. I almost don't believe him, to be honest. I actually gotta be honest, like... This person alleged that, like, they made a very clear boundary of pushing you off. There is no misunderstanding in that situation at all. When you get pushed off and someone makes a very clear boundary, hey, like, that's a pretty clear boundary to stop. Like, that's pretty clear. And for you to say you misunderstood the situation, like, earlier I gave the most charitable viewpoint from your perspective. But, like, even so, I almost just don't even believe you. Like, you, like, had a... Like, are we gonna address that part later? This is starting to feel a bit like entrapment. Is there something you would like to discuss outside of trying to get me to say specific phrases? I'm not sure what you are asking for in this interaction. It just feels like you're demanding me to say things. Yep, I remember. Sorry if I made you uncomfortable. I cut contact once you made it clear things were really negative between us and communicated poorly. Oh, we already read this. Okay. Here's a note from X about what inspired them to come forward with the situation. It would be good to make a post saying something about how your post has inspired others to come forward. At least for me, that's how I feel. I really hate seeing you harassed over what Thor was, over what I think was a legitimately toxic relationship, especially knowing that Thor's behavior hasn't improved whatsoever. The way he deletes his message just to play victim and twist the story is gross as hell. Yeah, no, it's definitely not good. I hope others, together, we can show others that who Pirate Software suffered from their actions. Well, just to be clear, I don't think... The only thing you suffered, Lyric, was the harassment from Pirate Software's community, which is definitely not good. But, like, I don't know. In a vacuum, what Pirate Software did to you, Lyric, was kind of a nothing burger, like, in general. For those who are skeptical, here is a scroll through the messages... with anonymous identity scrolled. Yeah, okay, so definitely these DMs are real. And I think that's pretty much it as far as these allegations go. Listen, I think that the anonymous person should definitely file a police report. I will be monitoring the situation as it goes on. But if all of this is true, if everything that's being described here is true, it's not looking good for Pirate Software. It's definitely not looking good. But also, I question certain parts of it. I am confused as to why Lyric shared their side of the story here. I also do think Pirates Lyric kind of making this about themselves, saying, I hope we can show together others who've suffered from Pirate Software's actions. First of all, Lyric, you're not a survivor, okay? Like, you both had consensual sex as legal adults. Like, he didn't sexually assault you or anything. Like, just, like, stop acting like you're a survivor along with this ex-person. So, like, don't make this about yourself. It's a little bit disgusting that you would do that, Lyric, just saying. Anyway, I'll be real with you. I do think Lyric shot themselves in the foot here because they released their first set of allegations and that wound up being a giant fucking nothing burger. And now because people, I would say a majority of people view it as a nothing burger. Excuse me. A majority of people viewed it as a nothing burger. Now, because someone is alleging something potentially a lot more serious than what Lyric's story was, like an actual serious sexual assault story, now people are just gonna like they're gonna turn their backs on this because it's coming from the same person, Lyric, who's just relaying allegedly someone else's story. But now people are turning their backs on this and they're not actually gonna look into something like this. I definitely think people should look into this again because allegedly, if everything here is true, it's not good. But also, Lyric is I don't know, it probably shouldn't have came from Lyric in general, because I don't know. They shot themselves in the foot here really badly. So, because, like, if this story winds up being true, a lot of people have already turned their backs on Lyric and have already decided that Lyric is not a reliable narrator because of the first set of allegations. Yeah, overall, if this is true, not good. We'll just monitor the situation to see how it goes from here.